Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about HubSpot. If you're hustling in the trenches to build a business or bootstrapping one of your own, let's talk about an AI-powered tool that can lighten up your workload a bit. HubSpot's Campaign Assistant is a game changer for creating marketing campaigns at scale. It quickly turns your key selling points into a cohesive pitch, which helps you deliver knockout emails, ads, and landing pages in minutes. So let Campaign Assistant take care of the campaigns so you can get back to growing your business. Work smarter, not harder at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant.
Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 7th. I'm Rob Litterst here with Sara Friedman, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Today, we're going to talk about the big business of bringing bankrupt companies back from the dead. Yes, corporate Dr. Frankenstein seems to be rolling in dough, but how does it actually work, and what does it actually take to turn a bankrupt company around? We're going to talk about that more in a moment, but first, let's catch up on everything else that's making headlines in the world of business and tech. First up, Bumble Inc.'s founder, Whitney Wolfe Herd, is stepping down as CEO of the dating company. She will be replaced by Lydian Jones, the CEO of Slack Technologies, Inc. And this is really kind of the passing of a torch. Whitney Wolfe Herd, I think, famously worked at Tinder for a long time and struck out to build Bumble into Tinder's biggest competitor. Super, super impressive and honestly the end of an era. Tyson Foods is voluntarily recalling 30,000 pounds of dino-shaped chicken nuggets, which I probably honestly bought for my son in the last couple of weeks, after some buyers found metal pieces in their chicken. There's been one minor oral injury caused by the nuggets, according to the USDA. Sounds like there's probably more to come there. Disney announced Hugh Johnston as its new CFO. Johnston spent the last 34 years in various positions at PepsiCo, most recently as its CFO. This is weird. Multiple guests at a Bored Ape event in Hong Kong later reported a strange burning sensation in their eyes, possibly due to intense stage lighting, or just maybe the truth that crypto isn't going anywhere burning in front of their face. The FDA may ban brominated vegetable oil, also known as BMO, an additive used in citrus drinks that may lead to thyroid and reproductive toxicity and developmental neurotoxicity. It's already banned in Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and California. Lastly, Epic Games lost to Apple, but now it's taking on Google. Both lawsuits have centered on tech giants' requirement that developers funnel payments through their app stores, resulting in a hefty cut of revenue. And with that, let's move on to our main story today. Bankrupt brands happen all the time, especially in the last few years. It seems like a ton of retailers specifically have gone bankrupt. Sara, you wrote an awesome piece in the newsletter today all about bringing bankrupt brands back from the dead. What is actually going on here? How do you bring a bankrupt company back from the dead?
Yeah, so as you said, we see this all the time. We've written about, endless retailers going bankrupt, but you notice that you hear about a bankruptcy filing and then you continue to see the retailer selling products. So essentially what's happening there is brands will go bankrupt, be liquidated, and essentially be sold for parts. And then other companies, whether they're competitors or niche firms that acquire bankrupt businesses, will buy the intellectual property. So we've seen this with Forever 21. They filed for bankruptcy in 2019. They were actually bought in 2020 by 3 separate companies. There's Radio Shack. They went bankrupt in 2015 and has since changed hands twice. And I believe their parent company is now flirting with bankruptcy in their own right. So not going so well over there. And then there's Pier 1 Imports that shuttered its brick and mortar stores after going bankrupt in 2020, but its e-commerce site lives on. So if you Google Pier 1, you can purchase a mirror or a chair. So they come back to life even after very publicly declaring bankruptcy.
It's really crazy. Like, I just literally searched stores that have gone bankrupt due to coronavirus, because I remember seeing this crazy list back in kind of like mid-pandemic. And it is like a who's who of basically everybody that would be in your local mall. It's really crazy. It honestly doesn't seem like bankruptcy means anything anymore because the headline of the article talks about how Alamo Drafthouse is the latest big name to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I literally just read they're opening one in the Seaport in Boston, which is like,
they are.
Okay, so I guess bankruptcy just doesn't mean much. But you look at it and like you said, there's some really, really big names on that list. I mean, J. Crew went bankrupt during the pandemic, Neiman Marcus, where I started my career. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me though, because they had such a niche product and just way too many stores.
Mm-hmm.
But JCPenney, like you said, Pier 1, all these huge, huge stores. You mentioned that a lot of these retailers will file for bankruptcy and then they'll either be sold for parts or they could be purchased by a number of companies. A lot of them end up changing hands. When companies go under, what actually happens? What are a lot of these retailers doing with the brands?
Yeah, so essentially they're after their intellectual property, which includes everything from the branding to customer data to product designs, domain names, literally everything. All of those pieces go up for sale when a brand declares bankruptcy. So sometimes we see that it's a rival brand that is buying up these businesses. So Nike bought Converse, Overstock bought Bed Bath & Beyond. Those are some big recent examples. But there's also specialized firms that kind of scoop up to 50 of these types of retailers. One of them, which is kind of a giant in the space, is called Authentic Brands Group. So they own more than 50 clothing labels, some very familiar, as you said, strip mall names, Quicksilver, Brooks Brothers, Barney's. These are retailers we all know. They buy them up and acquire all of their intellectual property and can then license the rights and rake in the royalties. And that's kind of the business model there.
It's so crazy. It really seems like the private equity firms that buy up software companies, the playbook that's kind of like become a meme for private equity firms is they buy this software business, they do a few rounds of layoffs and really kind of cut the organization down, and then they raise prices. Like that's kind of like the typical or traditional shorthand for what a private equity firm does with a software business. And that's why you see all of these kind of quasi private equity firms popping up today that have much more of kind of like a founder focused and founder friendly approach where they kind of promise that they're not going to do all that stuff, right? They're kind of like the Warren Buffett of SaaS or the software world now. Like there's a firm called Tiny that's doing this. There are a few others that I've heard of, but you mentioned Authentic Brands. Like that is really, really interesting. And I feel like can be super, super lucrative when you're talking about brands that have crazy name recognition. Like I think I still have a Quicksilver bathing suit, which is crazy because like I haven't been aware of Quicksilver since I was in like high school, but serious name recognition there.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're making real money off of these brands. In 2020, they had revenue that neared 490 million, and the company was recently valued at 20 billion. Crazy. So yeah, it's fascinating because when you hear that a brand has declared bankruptcy, at least for me, my mind immediately assumes that it was completely unsuccessful and a massive failure, but that's obviously not true. These brands are bringing companies like Authentic Brands Group a massive amount of money, and it's a really lucrative business.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We are a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clarke. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and have a terrific Tuesday.
Let me tell you about a show that I've been loving lately. It's called Entrepreneurs on Fire. It's hosted by the incredible John Lee Dumas. It's available now on the HubSpot Podcast Network. Entrepreneurs on Fire stokes inspiration and shares strategies to fire up your entrepreneurial journey and create the life that you've always dreamed of. I'm a big fan of this podcast. It has energy, it has value, and it's all about learning about entrepreneurship. I was just listening to an episode the other day. JLD interviewed Jay Rogers, who was such a wealth of information. He kind of went into how entrepreneurship chooses you. You don't necessarily choose it, and that failure only happens when you stop trying to win. A lot of gems in this one. So I highly recommend checking out that particular episode along with the rest. So go listen to Entrepreneurs on Fire wherever you get your podcasts. Hey guys, if you listen to the Hustle Daily Show on Google Podcasts, we want to let you know that the option will no longer be available pretty soon. Google is sunsetting its podcast app sometime in early 2024 in favor of YouTube Music, and we want to give you a heads up before it's too late, since that time's almost here. The Hustle Daily Show is available everywhere and anywhere that you listen to podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're using YouTube Music, we are there as well. If you're an Android fan, there are plenty of apps like Overcast, Pocket Casts, Player FM, and more. So just search for us wherever you decide to listen to your favorite podcasts.